The moment I walked into the bar, I knew it was a mistake. The dim lights, the music vibrating low and steady through the walls, the scent of whiskey and cologne that clung to the air. It all felt too familiar, like walking into a dream I'd tried too hard to forget. But it wasn't the place that made it a mistake. It was why I came. I wasn't looking for closure. I wasn't even looking for answers. I was looking for him. For Charlie. There he was, right where I knew he'd be, leaning against the bar like he owned the room, glass in hand, throwing his head back in laughter. That sound used to belong to me, those late nights, that private chuckle that came out only when we were tangled up in each other. Now, it belonged to someone else. Some tall, handsome guy standing far too close, his hand brushing Charlie's lower back like he'd earned the right. It hit me harder than I expected. I stood still, just inside the doorway, staring. The room faded around me. It didn't matter that we'd ended months ago. It didn't matter that I was supposed to be over it, supposed to be healing. Watching Charlie lean into that man, touch him so casually, so comfortably, it made something hollow inside me crack open. I hated that I still felt this way. We had torn each other apart, left pieces behind neither of us could clean up, but Charlie had moved on, clearly. And me? I was still stuck, caught somewhere between memory and regret. And worse, the pull was still there, like some invisible thread had wrapped around my chest, tugging me toward him whether I liked it or not. I told myself to leave, just turn around, but my feet didn't move. Then Charlie turned, and our eyes met, like magnets or fate, or some cruel joke the universe was playing on me. His gaze didn't falter. Those dark eyes, warm, dangerous, familiar, held mine for just a second too long. Just enough to remind me that he used to know every inch of me, every flaw, every weakness. His lips curled into a knowing smile. Well, he said, voice low like velvet and fire. Look who decided to show up. My throat tightened. You look good. I managed. My voice cracked, brittle and exposed. Charlie raised an eyebrow, his eyes flickering with something softer, something unspoken, before his trademark smirk returned. You don't look too bad yourself. I laughed under my breath, bitter and small. Still charming, I see. Still predictable, he replied, setting down his glass. I knew you'd come. That was the thing with Charlie. He always knew. And somehow, even after everything, he still had the power to undo me with just a look. And I hated, absolutely hated, how much I wanted him to do it. Again, there was something about that moment. The way his eyes held mine across the bar, the silence that pulsed louder than the music, the weight of everything unspoken between us, that made me realize something I've been running from. I never really moved on. I didn't heal. I didn't grow. I just buried it. Buried him. Buried us. But Charlie had always had a way of digging up the dead. As the night stretched on, he and his new boyfriend Luke remained tucked into their little world, talking, laughing, sharing drinks and touches that should have been innocent. But they weren't. Not to me. And not when Charlie kept locking eyes with me, again and again, like he was daring me to admit that the space between us still burned. Every time our gazes met, I felt it, the thrum under my skin, the heat curling low in my stomach, the familiar ache of something I never got closure from. And Charlie, God, he knew it. He didn't make his move until much later, after the night had worn thin, and the drinks had softened everything sharp. The music had dipped into something slow and sultry, the kind that made the walls sweat. Charlie walked over like it was the most natural thing in the world. Luke was nowhere in sight, maybe in the restroom, maybe long gone. I didn't ask. I didn't care. He leaned in close, and his breath ghosted across my ear like a secret. You always were a reckless one, he murmured, voice low and coaxing. the way he used to whisper when no one else was supposed to hear. "Tell me, you sure you moved on? Or do you miss what we had?" I froze. The words slid into my chest like a knife, clean and precise. Did I miss it? Hell, yes. But I shouldn't have. I turned, met his eyes, and didn't blink. "What are you saying, Charlie?" His grin widened, lazy and dangerous, his fingers brushing against mine. Even that small touch sent sparks crawling up my arm. "Let's see if we still have that fire," he whispered. There were 1,000 reasons to walk away. But when he stood and gave me that look, the one that always undid me, I followed, like a moth to flame, like I'd never learned how not to burn. We drifted to the back of the bar, past the neon haze and noise, into a darker corner where no one would look and no one would care. The rest of the world dissolved behind us. "I shouldn't be doing this," I said, my voice barely audible over the hum of my guilt. The words felt like treason, but they weren't enough to stop me. Charlie reached for me, his palm pressed against the small of my back, pulling me in. "Then why are you here?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. When he kissed me, my mind shut off. Every reason, every rule, every line we weren't supposed to cross. Gone. His lips were everything I remembered. Soft, insistent, hungry. I kissed him back like he was oxygen, like I'd been holding my breath since the day he left. And maybe I had. It felt wrong, and yet it felt so right. There was no denying the heat between us. No pretending it wasn't there. We had always been fire, and the flames never went out. But the guilt weighed heavily on me. Charlie was with Luke. He wasn't mine anymore. Yet, here we were, in the dark, like we had been countless times before. We pulled away for a moment, both of us breathing heavily. Charlie's eyes were dark, filled with that same desire I knew so well. But there was something else there too. Regret. "You're not just doing this to prove something, are you?" I asked, my voice shaky. Charlie's gaze softened and he stepped back, his hands still on my arms. "I don't know, but I don't think I can walk away from you again. Not after what we had." My heart thudded in my chest. "And Luke?" Charlie's expression faltered for a second, but then he shook his head. "We're not good for each other. You know that. You were always what I wanted. I just couldn't admit it." I swallowed, feeling the weight of his words. "I shouldn't be doing this, Charlie." "But you want to," he whispered. "You've always wanted to." We stood there, staring at each other, the music of the bar echoing in the background. I could feel the tension, the need pulling us together again. But there was one thing we both knew. This wasn't just a mistake. It was something bigger. Something we both had tried to bury, but could never fully escape. "You know this won't end well," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Charlie nodded, but there was no fear in his eyes, only desire. "It doesn't matter. I'm not afraid anymore." Without thinking, I reached out, my hand sliding down his chest. The heat between us flared again. His shirt was too much of a barrier, and I ripped it off him in one swift motion. Charlie was hard beneath my touch, and when he kissed me again, I melted into him. The world outside didn't matter. The past, the guilt, everything, it all disappeared. All that mattered was the way we fit together, the way we always had. The room was spinning, and my head was clouded with need. We stumbled into a dark alley behind the bar, the walls cold against my back. Charlie's hands were everywhere, his lips on my neck, his fingers tracing my skin as if memorizing every inch of me. And I couldn't stop myself. I didn't want to stop. "I never stopped wanting you," he murmured against my skin. I didn't know if it was the alcohol, the desire, or the raw emotion between us, but I couldn't fight it anymore. We were in a bed that wasn't mine, doing things we shouldn't be doing. But in that moment, I didn't care. Charlie's hands were everywhere, pulling me closer, pushing me deeper into him. The sensation was overwhelming. And then, in the middle of it, the thought of Luke hit me like a freight train. I pulled away, gasping for air. "Charlie, what about Luke?" I asked, my voice tight. Charlie froze, his eyes full of regret. "I don't care anymore. I never should have been with him." We lay there, tangled in the sheets, both of us breathless. The silence was deafening, but the weight of what we had done settled between us. "You're still the one," Charlie whispered, tracing circles on my chest. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe it. The morning after was worse than I expected. The guilt was suffocating, and Charlie was already gone. His absence left a void I couldn't ignore. I didn't know what to do anymore. I had broken everything. Again, I couldn't go back to what we had. Not now, but I couldn't walk away from him either. There was no easy answer, only the truth. Charlie was the one I wanted, and I wasn't sure I could ever let him go again. I texted Charlie that night. "We need to talk." There was no easy way out, but I had to know if this was the beginning of something new or the end of everything.